From Trimble Construction, you're listening to the Connected Construction Show, where we connect you to the contractors, owners, designers, engineers, and construction professionals who are finding better ways to work. And now, here's your host, Matt Sprague.
Hello and welcome to the Connected Construction Show. I'm your host, Matt Sprague. Very excited to have everybody tune in on whatever device you're on. Also extremely excited to have our guest this week, Britton Lawson from Vite & Company. Britton, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited for the conversation.
Yeah, I know I've been looking forward to it. I think we met maybe like a month or so ago and been planning out this conversation. So excited to dive right into it. So off the bat, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, your background, what you do, who Vite & Company is, and what your passions are, especially within construction.
Yeah, I started out, I always joke around that I always made my sandbox a little bit bigger. So I've always had a passion for heavy equipment and all things construction. So I went to school for heavy equipment operation and became an operator with a local construction company. And after working with that company for a while, I followed up with my heavy equipment instructor at school, and he showed me a GPS video, and it just basically took my career path down a whole different avenue. It was kind of that fork in the road that we always talk about, right? So, throughout that, I became the champion of GPS for some of these companies, but it led me into some supervisor positions and boots on the ground, building projects, foreman, supervisor, general superintendent. So it's kind of given me a unique background, if you will. And I would say my passion for construction has always stayed, and heavy equipment, all things heavy equipment, and now it's coupled with technology, right? So my wife has kind of coined my unofficial title as a technology nerd equipment enthusiast, so I think it fits me fairly well. So, but it has landed me to Vite & Company here, where I work under the operations umbrella. So I work with our fleet management group. I oversee our GPS group as well, and then I also just work in the business intelligence side of things too, just that internal, that advocate for technology. So it's been a good run. It's fun.
That's awesome. So now you've taken that technology nerd and embraced it. Tell us a little bit about, so people can find you or at least your persona on technology_sandbox on Instagram. So talk to us about how you started that and what that's all about.
Yeah. I think it was probably about 5-6 years ago, I started a technology account, essentially construction technology. So it was just to provide awareness. I like taking pictures. I was out taking pictures on job sites, and everything I would talk about, like people would say, "You've got the coolest job. You guys do the coolest stuff as far as the automation of equipment and things like that." And I just wanted to share that with people. And so I just started posting a few pictures, and it blew up into something I never even imagined. So anytime we can help people and show awareness to what's available, how we can use a product better, gain knowledge and experience from other people on social media, I think it's been a huge advantage. It's been a huge, it's just been great to be a part of that community and learning from other people and being able to help other people at the same time. So, it's been fun.
Now, I appreciate you and people like you that do that. My wife always, she'll come and look over my shoulder as I'm scrolling on Instagram, and she also is just like, "You are a total nerd." Like she, expects something about sports or something along those lines, and it's just construction after construction after construction.
Oh yeah, yeah. My feed is all construction, heavy equipment, all of the above. So it's it's what I look at in my time away, and I enjoy coming to work every day. I'm one of the lucky few that enjoys going to work, and everything that we do every day. It's different. So
that's the name of the game, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of technologies and the fact that you're following these, you're promoting them or whatnot. So what are some of the new technologies that you're checking out right now, whether it's personally or if it's specifically something within Vite?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many new things, and my umbrella is all the way from the field, to the office and everything in between, and fleet management. Our current initiative right now at Vite is to find a small tools, consumable tracking software, something that gets us off paper, something that streamlines the billing, something that helps us just do a better job of managing all of our small tools, the amount that we buy, the amount that we have, the maintenance on them, things like that. So that's should be a huge time saver, should give us a huge ROI, just giving us more transparency on that. So that's kind of our main focus. But there's just so many things out there, and how do they fit into the business? Everybody's kind of trying to do that same thing of that field to office and just that complete solution. And then you have some other things sprinkled in there of augmented reality, which has always been fascinating, right? You can take a real life picture and then put a digital model over it and actually get just a frame of reference or something for that job site in real time. I think is a huge one. But how does it fit into the business is more the challenges as far as how do you implement it, right? So those are always fun ones. Scanning, spot the dog is always fun to watch. So that Boston Dynamics has out, and all the payloads that are available with that. So there's something always new out there.
So when it comes to the asset and fleet management, so this just kind of came to my mind, and so maybe this is a really simple answer, but you mentioned augmented reality. Is augmented reality utilized for asset and fleet management, or could you see it being utilized?
That'd be challenging. I mean, assets, if you had a larger yard, you could use, I don't know if you could use augmented reality. I guess I hadn't thought about it much, to be honest with you, but I mean, anytime you couple technologies, I mean, it's exciting, right? So
yeah. Well, I figure like maybe it's more of object recognition rather than someone wearing something and having. Yeah, you're right. I don't see where there would be that connect. But in terms of job site cameras and utilizing that for object recognition and tracking and that type of stuff.
Yeah, even like in some of our yards, understanding what's in our yards as far as tooling, foundation tooling, or any of our demo tooling, just being able to take that inventory. We've got I-beams, lagging boards, things like that up in a yard, and be able to take an inventory without having somebody out there, whether it be with Spot the Dog or, some sort of, automated process there that could give us a real-time inventory of what's coming in and out of yards without having somebody to physically check it in or check it out. So I think there's all sorts of opportunity there for sure. So
I love it. So what are currently like your biggest challenges within asset and fleet management? Data,
I think, would be the biggest thing. Just having streamlined data that's available to us at the click of a button, being able to get that data out, and then the accuracy of the data, whether it be meter hours, whether it be costs, whether it be where the costs are, what system they're in. You've got parts and labor in separate systems potentially. On a fleet management software, you're bringing in your labor and then porting it over to an ERP. And that, just trying to organize that and then making decisions on it. And so trying to make those decisions off of, changing your culture, changing your mindset in terms of what you've always done, right? Your historical, your culture, what you're used to, your comfort zone of what you know. And as you scale, to be able to use those numbers to make actionable decisions on, and, to make you more profitable, make you more efficient, and all the outside variables that are coming in to change the projectile of that path, right? So that's, and then like second being trusting the data, trusting that the data is accurate, that you put it in there, and that you don't have to go back and run a second report to compare this report. That everything's there and it's easily accessible. Once the data gets in there, you got to be able to get it out so you can make decisions on the data and see the trends on it. And I think putting it in those dashboards or those visualizations, depending on what way you're used to seeing it, right? So if some people are used to looking at grids and spreadsheets and numbers. Some people like myself would rather look at a colored chart that kind of give you, snippets that you can drill down on. So those are some of the challenges. And as we work through them, I think everybody kind of starts to see and find their way and then starts to contribute on those things as you keep that conversation open.
So at Vite, have you cracked the nut in terms of being able to utilize the data, or is it still siloed, like you said, and not necessarily impossible, but challenging in order to utilize?
We are cracking the nut. So we have not.
Fair enough.
Yeah, we have not found the nut inside, but we have got a good a good break in it. Let's just say that. So over the last 2 years, we've had initiatives, and obviously the first thing that we found was that our data was inaccurate. It was inconsistent. I shouldn't say it was inaccurate. It was just inconsistent. So, with that, we've tried to shore up some of that data. We've started to put policies and procedures in place to be able to make sure that data was more accurate. And then starting to put tools in the toolbox to be able to pull that data out. So we're in a good spot and a good trajectory now to really start pulling some of that data out and making decisions on it.
So what are the causes of the inaccurate data? Because I'm sure our listeners probably have some of the same issues. So if that's part of the nut that you've cracked, would you want to share it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it's like, for instance, it's meter hours, for instance. We want to get meter hours accurate. So the previous process was it would come in on a napkin, it would come in on an email, text message. So we have a system now that, we can do it through our job tracking system. We'll be able to get our meter hours in. We've opened up APIs or telematics connections to feed our softwares automatically. So we're getting more consistent data so that we can stay on top of all of our preventative maintenance, fairly minuscule things, but that gets into equipment life. So now you can start to see, how many hours are on a piece of equipment at a certain time frame, years, if you will. So now you can start to see the average hours that you're putting on a year. Based off of those meter readings. So, there's things that we've taken advantage of in our fleet maintenance software as we are closing out work orders requiring meter readings. We put somebody and they champion that. And I think that's the biggest thing is there's kind of a data gatekeeper, if you will, just to assure that we're getting the readings that we need on a regular basis. So
interesting. So there's an element of getting everybody at Vite to adopt these new policies and procedures. So in terms of forget about the inaccurate or accuracy of data, but just in general in terms of technology, just in your experience, what has been the adoption challenges within companies that you've worked for?
First off, the adoption, like, how is this going to change my process? They look at any change as this is going to make more work for me, right? And if you can take the time and people's days are so tight and so packed with the project or the work that they're doing, that they don't have time to kind of learn it, right? So if they take that extra time to change their habits, it's going to save them time, but they don't want to get out of that, right? But then once they kind of get into the software, say they get over that hump where they're going to start learning it, they're going to get into a point where they're afraid to break it, right? So they don't want to explore in the software. They don't want to move things around. They don't want to click on this because they don't know what's going to happen. But you got to understand that a lot of these softwares are designed so that you can't break them, right? And then, the backup with that is support. So if they have somebody, I've found that if they have somebody that they know that they can call and get them out of a bind, and a lot of it comes down to immediate gratification. They want to be able to call and they want you to be able to answer, right? So there's companies out there that have phenomenal support, but that's a big thing that we vet out early on is the support of the company, right? We ask the questions, we'll call the support lines and see, how fast they're answering. But even internally, somebody that they can talk to, that they can call, out in the field, they can call me in the office or whomever that basically champions that software, and you can walk them through it on the phone. You can do a Teams meeting, you can do, whatever it may be, or they can even stop by and you can do a training session. I think is the biggest hurdle for adoption in terms of getting people to just buy in and show them the value that this is actually going to save you time. It's not going to waste time. So,
yeah, I remember. Geez, this was ages ago. It wasn't even a construction, but I remember it was a indoor athletic facility that I tried to I was working at it, and I said, "Here's an automated scheduling software for you." But it was like violently, like, we're staying with spreadsheets. And, and it was that because the first go around was going to take a little extra.
Yep.
And they couldn't see past it and whatnot. So it's all about trying to get them to see past the initial investment, whether it being monetary or time.
Yeah. And I find that, you know, like a lot of times you see a new software, like it's going to be shot down basically 9 out of 10 times right away. And I found it's all about planting seeds and watering them along the way and getting buy-in along the way to start saying like, hey, this is a problem. Here's a solution for it. You know, it's not a problem. We don't need that, whatever. And, you know, 6 months later, you're like, hey, here's a problem that still exists. Here's a solution. They're like, oh, yeah, you're not far off. You know, 2 years later, you're having conversations. So it's a marathon. It's not a sprint, I would say, especially when it comes to technology, and especially when you've got a larger organization. And I would say smaller organizations have a little bit of an advantage because they don't have that. Smaller, newer organizations, they don't have that tribal knowledge. They don't have those habits. They're very nimble. They've got 3 people they got to convince or hold accountable or whatever it is. I mean, we've got 150 people that we've got to hold accountable and convince, right? So it's like, you know, these smaller companies can get off on the right foot, do more work with less people, and be more nimble and be successful in those spaces. So, yeah, it's just an interesting observation of kind of as you look at some of the people that are adopting some of the technologies. So,
yeah, and I figure also with a smaller organization, the person with the expertise in the new technology, internal, might just be hey, Sarah. Like, right over there. Yep. Where on a larger organization, especially if it's not all in one office, the nature of construction being actually out in the field and whatnot is having the internal infrastructure to support those, which I guess that's why you have a job, right? So
right. Yeah. Well, and the other part about it, like in a small company is, typically you're wearing far more hats in a smaller company. So they understand the business. They understand all aspects of the business. Right now, like, you could get into, the larger companies, the owners are IT, right? But they don't work in the business. They don't understand the business. They don't live in the software. So they're not the data keepers. They're not, hey, you could do this, or this would help you next, right? So those are the things that I think that, get missed is you need to have a champion within that group so that they're using it and they just have a yearn to learn and they just have this curiosity of like, well, what if I did this? Or, I could make my life easier here. And that's what it was, 3 years ago when I got my position it was just simple things of, if we just check this box, it'll save you an hour, so, and those are the easy wins and those are the fun wins, but now it's like, now you got to search a little bit more for the big ROIs. So
now you have to actually work.
Right. Exactly. You're like, oh gosh.
Yeah. So with your position of director of construction technology, so what has been, the greatest technology that's been adopted that's had the greatest impact at Vite?
I'm biased. My upbringing at Vite was in the survey group so I managed I helped manage a lot of our hardware, built a lot of our models. And so we're regional, so trying to get the data out to the field was always a challenge, right? So we're home office out of Minnesota, so we got to go to North Dakota, South Dakota, Wisconsin, Iowa. So we're regional. We've got some jobs that we also support in the southern states. Oklahoma, we'll chase clients. But the problem was always getting data to the field efficiently, and then even like with the addendums and changes in the jobs, getting that data as well, and then also getting the data back. So we adopted a connected workflow. It was probably 6 years ago, and we kind of made our own bet on it. So basically what a connected workflow is, all of our equipment is connected to the cloud. They all have modems on them. All of our handheld data collectors, this is then talking machine control, grade control side of things. They're all connected to the internet. So what we do is we can publish designs, or we can transfer all of our data is going up to the cloud, and then it's coming back down to the machines and rovers as they need them for the field guys. So it's become an expectation that, a machine pulls up on a lowboy and they can get a design that fast, right? We can just say, yep, add it to the job and off it goes. so I joke that we made our own bed in terms of this immediate gratification. And even when we're forced to, when a technology does fail of transferring the data, or whether it's a cell service or something like that, we're so reliant on the technology that it's hard to do the original process of USB on the newer displays that we're using right now, right? Because we're just not used to that interface. We're so reliant on the connected workflow that it's like, it's funny to say, like, well, the tried and true method, we're like, ooh, I don't know how to do that, so it's just, like the old systems that you can walk people through without even thinking about it while you're doing 3 other different things. With the new system, you're like, oh yeah, I haven't done that a whole lot. So we'll have to work through it, but, so it's good, it's bad. But it's also opened up a lot of doors in terms of, remote-based connections, in terms of an internet-based connection, right, that's available in states. It's opened up mapping data to come back. As we do as-built data, that can come back real fast so that we can turn those things around. So it works fairly seamlessly, and everybody is comfortable with it. And there's, in some sense of the word, for the field, there's not a lot of interaction. But I would say it's probably been one of the greatest successes for us, because we've been able to keep our survey group headcount down and manage the regions that we do and how we move equipment as well. So it's I wouldn't want to live without that process. So
it all comes back to data again, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's interesting that the instant gratification is that it's kind of going one step further now. So like, let's be honest, the number one people get instant gratification is getting paid. So now what we are being engaged on is taking that same data flow for field data and being able to compare that to the model for progress payments in an automated workflow. Yep. So now, not having to, I think currently you can get the data, but then it has to then be, usually brought back to the office, or at least it's sent to the office, who then takes it and puts it into whatever other system that can tabulate that information, whether it's hand put in or, whatever it might be. Take some time. But now the instant gratification is actually becoming even more, that you can actually start to see your bank accounts being affected a lot quicker.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's what we're doing with machine data. We're pulling all the machine data off so we can see real progress quantities. We can pull all of our drone data, things like that. But, you're 100% right. How do you get it into your ERP to say, all right, we've moved this. We've got the estimate from our job tracking software saying we've moved this many loads, which we equate to a yardage, right? So we can say that we moved 8,000 yards today, right? But, how do you get that to the client to say, here's our progress payment, pay us, right? And that's typically on a monthly basis. So there will be some challenges around that with cost codes, though, because for instance, common excavation, you may have your job spread out a couple ways, or even topsoil. So you're doing multiple things. And so how do you that dozer operator, how does they tell you what they're doing that day or what they're doing at that time to be able to have that automated workflow? So it's an interesting conversation that obviously is very, very real in the industry right now of how do we automate that? And here's some of the variables that we got to work through. And I think that's one thing to look at technology is it's really easy to say, well, this won't work because, well, that won't work because we do this, or this won't work, so but there is a very, very strong opportunity and solution for that, right? But so how do we solve that problem as we work through those workflows? So, and I think that's one thing that you got to keep in mind when you're looking at technologies or introducing new technologies or what it looks like in the future, because things change, right? Fast.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always about questioning the norm. I have some friends who own companies, and I've told them, if you can ask the question, why do you do it that way? And the answer is, well, because it's always the way it's been done. Then it doesn't necessarily mean it's not the right way to do still, but you should be, there should be some periodic investigation to make sure that still is the most efficient way of doing it.
I think the most humbling experience is when you have to document your processes, and then you look at your process and you're like, we do that. That's a lot of steps. You're like, it seems fast, but like you got to explain it to somebody if you got to onboard, and you're like, well, we do this, this, and this, and they go, well, why do you do that? It's because we've always done it that way. So sometimes just documenting your process is good to have so that you can hand it off when you onboard, but also it holds you accountable and kind of gives you a different perspective looking back of like, ooh, if we cut this step out, we could save a lot of time. So
yeah. So let's kind of go to future thinking for a second. So what piece of construction tech that does not exist yet that you can't wait for someone to put out there? Can you invent something right now, Britton?
No, I can't invent a piece of hardware, but what I will say, to our conversation,
can you invent a concept?
Something that identifies soils, something that, and then also underground utilities. If you could invent how we could prevent hitting underground utilities without having a map accurately, that would save lives. It would save a lot of money, and it would speed projects up significantly. And the last thing would be just one software that integrates with everything, no questions asked. Yep, we'll take it all. So just
put it all together.
Smooth those workflows. You want to use this one? Like, you guys are really good at doing this, so we're not going to. Don't try and create something because they're really good at doing that, and put them together, right? So, those are my three. Well,
I feel like the vision is, it's around, shared APIs, and it's not about products, but workflows, right? And it's just. So therefore you're just like, I need to go to a marketplace for whatever, something as simple as an RFI process, I should say. Simple. Like, but
right.
You can be like, okay, there, I got my RFI process. I don't have to go to XYZ company to get it. It's just that.
Yeah.
But the underground utilities piece, that was interesting. I was in a conversation a year ago, and I'd be curious. And it was, it was a 1 hour exploration, so I don't know if this is definitive, but the idea was, obviously it was around the lead service line replacements for the bipartisan infrastructure law, around, obviously one of the largest challenges in that is to know where they are. And it's not only to what you said in terms of to know where all service lines are, but is that one lead? Right. And part of it, it's like, so the biggest cost is having to dig the darn thing up and be like, oh, nope, not lead. We're good. So it's like, some sort of scanning mechanism or something that you can determine not only is it there, but what is it made of? Yeah.
Absolutely. And that would be, it's going to be a hard one to do, to be able to even see that it's there and then identify it. There's ground penetrating radar, but that's picking up rocks and other things in the soils, right? And then, so you got to go back, there's human interaction involved in that. But that would be, we had an excavator operator that we joked back and forth. He's like, well, if we can invent that, we wouldn't have to do this. I was like, yeah, you're right. But he kept every time, did you figure it out yet? I have not. So,
well, this has been awesome. This has been a great conversation. We finish off every episode with a question that may or may not have anything to do with construction. So the state that I live in is New Hampshire, and the New Hampshire motto is "Live Free or Die." It's one of the more well-known state mottos. Obviously, coming back from revolutionary times, General John Stark. In terms of, if you really wanted to know, you can call me Cliff Clavin from Cheers right now. But my question to you is what motto do either you live by, or what motto have you heard that really intrigues you?
I haven't heard a lot. Nothing comes to mind. The first thing that comes to mind, nothing that I've heard, is just, always be open to trying something new and have that open mind. I think that's something that it gives you the ability to learn. It always gives you the ability to try new things. It gives you the ability to experience, right? So I'm always open to trying new things and having that mindset.
That's a great outlook, especially in the industry that we're in, right?
Yeah.
You gotta keep trying different things, and eventually we'll be able to figure out if that's lead underground or not.
Gosh, I hope so.
Well, Britton, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you to everybody who has tuned in to listen to this conversation with the Connected Construction Show. Until next time, stay connected.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Connected Construction Show. For more information, visit us at connectedconstructionshow.com.